Once you've installed and configured Virtualize, you can create a virtual service. Let's start by creating a very simple virtual service that will respond with Hello World when it is invoked. This is the Parasoft Virtualize Community Edition. We're going to start by finding the Virtual Assets folder on the left in my Virtual Asset Explorer pane on the left here. I'm going to right-click on Virtual Assets and say Add New Virtual Asset File. And the first thing we're going to do is say, actually give my virtual service a name. So we can go ahead and call it Hello World. And next we're going to actually specify how to create that virtual service. So you can see that for a REST service, we have a few different automated ways of generating the virtual service. We can consume a RAML definition, a Swagger definition. In the case of a SOAP service, we could consume a WSDL or an XML schema. Or we could even consume a traffic recording in order to create my virtual service. Since we're building ours from the ground up, we're going to go ahead and say empty at this point. I now have my hello world.pva over in the left. And if I expand it, you're going to see that I have an empty responder suite. So let me talk really briefly about what a responder is. A responder is the piece of our virtual service which actually provides a response when a request comes in. Our virtual asset can have many different responders, and we can map a responder to a specific kind of request. For more on responders, watch our video on extending your virtual service. But for now, let's just add a single responder and configure it with a response message. So to do that, we're going to right-click on my responder suite and say Add New Responder. And specifically, we're going to select a JSON message responder because that's the kind of response we want to send back. And you can see I have on the right here now an empty JSON response that I can configure for whatever purpose I wish. So we can either paste in a literal JSON message here if we have a sample, or I can actually go to form JSON and I can just go ahead and add elements manually. So let's do that. Let's add a element. It's going to be called message, and it's going to be of type string. And the contents of this element is going to be hello world. So now that we've configured my element and its contents, I'm going to go ahead and save this response. And the only other thing we have to do is go ahead and start up my virtual server so that this PVA is actually hosted at a certain endpoint that we can invoke. So to start up my virtualized server, I'm going to go over to the right and select my server and then click the green play button here. And by default, what's going to happen is we're actually going to deploy my virtual server on port 9080. And my hello world.pva will be hosted at a URL which is equal to its name. So what I mean by that is Hello World will be hosted at localhost 9080/hello world. So just to prove that it's up and running now, let's go over to my browser, and I'm going to go ahead and type in exactly that URL. So it's going to be localhost 9080/hello world. Great. So you can see now that I'm getting my JSON response with that message element, and it says hello world. In this video, we've built a very simple virtual service that always responds in the same way. Next, we'll look at adding more complexity to make our virtual service dynamic for more realistic scenarios.